What can I say about Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre that has not been said before? I don't know, but I'm just gonna tell you my thoughts on this movie and tell you how I and what I think about it. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of those seminal horror movies that comes out once a generation. This movie changed the game. This was the movie that spearheaded that slasher genre that was to come with Halloween in the year 1978. But in 1974, just 4 years out before Halloween, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre kicked it into high gear. Tobe Hooper's direction in this movie is fantastic. The documentarian vibe this movie has, that grounded reality vibe this movie has, with beautiful cinematography by Daniel Pearl, stands the test of time. The production design of this movie by Robert A. Burns, iconic. The imagery that these three men created with this movie, once you watch something like, once you see this movie, you watch the imagery in this movie, it's going to stay embedded in your mind. The the family house that you see is going to stay embedded in your mind. The inside of that house will be embedded in your mind. This just ransacked, just creepy looking house with bones and feathers all over the place, meat hooks hanging out from the ceiling. All this imagery stays in your mind. And again, that the tribute goes to Tobe Hooper's excellent direction, beautiful production design by Robert A. Burns, outstanding cinematography by Daniel Pearl. Again, these three men, they came together and they created a beautiful movie, a beautiful horror movie, just with imagery. This movie's not this, now. This movie gained controversy because of the violence that's in it. When you watch this movie from start to finish, the violence is not that much violence. It's implied violence. You never really see any blood, with the exception of one character named Franklin getting killed. You see little blood spurts coming out, but you never really see any penetration of a weapon going into somebody. And that, again, that goes to Tobe Hooper's direction and just how he used the implied violence and how everything is left to the theater of the mind, like all great horror directors do. It's the mind that fills in the gaps, and that's why this movie has the reputation that it has of being one of the most violent movies ever made. But when you actually watch it, it's not a violent movie. It's not really that violent of a movie. It's a very, very intense movie. It's a very atmospheric movie. It's a movie that once you pop it in, it just grabs you right in with the imagery. Now, from an acting standpoint, the four protagonists, they're okay. You know, Sally, Kirk, Jerry, and Franklin, they're fine. They don't put on any star-studded performances, but their performances are grounded enough that you care about them. And the chemistry with the four actors, they work. They make you believe that they're friends, and when they start getting picked off one by one, you feel for them. But the standouts in this movie are got to be Edwin Neal as the hitchhiker, Jim Cito as the cook, and of course Gunnar Hansen himself as Leatherface. The Sawyer family, the cook, played by Jim Cito. When we first see him, he's a normal-looking guy, but once the climax happens, he goes into full-blown Looney Tunes mood, and it's revealed that he is a member of the Sawyer family, the hitchhiker. Edwin Neal's performance as a hitchhiker, he's great. He is just full-blown, chew the scenery, over-the-top craziness, and you can tell he's having a blast playing the hitchhiker. The hitchhiker is probably one of the best characters in this movie because he's just so iconic, he's just so memorable. And the things he does in the van just stay with you. You know, like cutting himself with Franklin's razor blade, then slicing Franklin himself with the same razor blade, and just the way he talks, you know, like, it's a good picture. It's good. You can pay me now. It's good stuff. It's great stuff. It's iconic stuff. And I got to go back to the cook again. Jim Cito's performance, like I said, he goes from being this nice guy, and then when the shit hits the fan, he goes into full-blown crazy mode, like I said, and him too, you know. It's just the way Jim Cito plays the cook is just so great. It's great, and he has like a lot of iconic lines. Like when they go to the house, he just looks at a door that's been cut to shreds because Leatherface was chasing Sally all throughout the house. He just walks in and is like, "Look what your brother did to the door!" It's like, you damn fool! You ruined the door. Your brother got no respect for his home. Like this, the cook is great in this movie. Jim Cito has that right amount of good guyness, and creep value all to him. And I also like his character as well because he does not agree with the killing of people. He takes no pleasure in killing. But a man's got to do what a man's got to do. Cook is a great character. And of course, we have Leatherface, Gunnar Hansen himself. Gunnar Hansen is the man who made Leatherface this iconic horror icon. The look of Leatherface, the mannerisms he gave Leatherface, all stands out. He's just this big hulking figure, but there's a little bit to Leatherface himself because when you actually watch this movie, Leatherface is not killing these kids out of random. He's killing these kids out of self-defense, or in his mind, he just does not know what to do because he's under the control of his family to the point where they kind of baby him and treat Leatherface like a baby. And Leatherface in this movie, he acts like a child, like a big baby, like a big child who is under complete control of his family, and he just does things just to defend his home and to defend his family. He's not doing it out of malice, he's doing it out of self-defense in a way. And there's this great scene where he's in his room just like thinking, what's going on, where are these people coming from, he doesn't know what to do. It's a great scene, and Gunnar Hansen plays it perfectly. And like I said, the overall look of Leatherface is great. The bloody yellow apron, the face mask made of human flesh, it all just stands out. It's all just very, very iconic. And the chase scenes in this movie are beautifully paced, full of tension, full of terror, full of everything. There's just that roaring chainsaw and just that scream and just Sally screaming all throughout. This movie has no musical score to begin with. It has sounds and ambiance and ambiatic sounds, but it has no distinct score. And that's great because it just adds to the realism and documentarian feel that this movie has. And to me, it makes the chase scenes that much more scarier because you just hear the sounds of this roaring chainsaw and this poor woman screaming for her life, and that's all you need to get get under your skin and to make it go on the edge of your seat. Again, I attribute all that to Tobe Hooper's direction, and I give all the credit to Marilyn Burns and Gunnar Hansen for making those scenes play out the way they do, and especially the dinner scene, which is probably the most iconic scene of this whole movie, where Sally's strapped to the chair, you have the cook, the hitchhiker, you have Leatherface, you got Grandpa, who's the best in the business. Old Grandpa, he's the best. And of course, the iconic dinner scene just speaks for itself. It's intense, it's terrifying, it's just mind-boggling how they torture this woman and how they just taunt her and torture her. And then you got the dark humor that's spread all throughout this movie, mostly coming from the cook. And that's one of these things that this movie, one of the unsung positives of this movie is that no one really touches on the dark humor that this movie has, because there are a lot of moments where the cook, he's goddamn hilarious when he's acting all crazy. When he's talking about Grandpa, it's funny stuff. When he's yelling at the hitchhiker and Leatherface, it's hilarious when he's calling them names and just like slapping them and hitting them. But the humor of this movie kind of falls through because this movie just has that intensity to it, that a lot of good qualities kind of fall by the wayside because everyone just overlooks them and they don't pay attention to it. Like, they're more worried about saying this is the greatest horror movie ever made. And the Texas Chainsaw is one of the greatest horror movies ever made, but there's more to this movie than just the horror. You have really good dark comedy. You have very strong performances by Edwin Neal and Jim Cito, who are just chewing the scenery and just being overblown, over the top, cuckoo crazy, and you can tell they're having a blast doing it. You have an iconic performance by Gunnar Hansen, who gave Leatherface his iconic status. So yeah, there's obviously so much more to talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but those really are my thoughts and really all I got to say. Yes, this movie is a perfect 10 out of 10. This is a seminal horror movie. This movie is too important in the history of horror to be overlooked and to have anything lower than a 10. Take away the subpar acting from the four protagonists, this movie has a lot more to offer. Has so much more to offer when you actually watch it from start to finish. So yes, 10 out of 10 for Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Let me know your thoughts in the comment sections down below. Do you like it? Do you hate it? I would like to know. Like the video and subscribe, and I will check you back next time for more.